the church, especially the Episcopal Church, is the inheritor of a tradition. The Hebrew Scriptures, the Gospels about Jesus, the letters of Paul and others, the Acts of the Apostles, the ecumenical councils and their creeds, bishops and popes, the whole flow of Christian organization and faith and practice. And in a sense, it feels as if the church of today is the moving edge of that great tradition. And we saw that on display at Bishop Lucinda's consecration a week ago yesterday, when there were copes and mitres, the formal attire of bishops lined up in front of the altar, and then ratchets and shemirs, which are the less formal attire of bishops, came flocking up from the pews, and they had vergers and torches and choir and organ and horns, the flowing tradition. And then the tradition including even more, with parts of the service being said or sung in Spanish and Filipino. Cause and effect. The church builds on its foundation and celebrates its growth with pomp and beauty. And sometimes, that's a little prideful maybe, but the Episcopal Church does it really well. It's really interesting. There were 800 people in the church there at St. Andrews in Saratoga, and more still at viewing parties in a number of churches, because it was streaming online, and others maybe streaming it live at home. But there were over 68,000 people at the 49ers-Vikings game across town that day. There were 28 million people watching that game at home. So that takes care of the pride a bit. If we're a wave that started at the River Jordan, maybe it's not even a big enough wave to have a bishop boogie board. No, and sometimes I worry that kind of surfing may be going out of style. In fact, I heard, and this is second or third hand, that on the Friday before the consecration, the clergy had a lunch with the presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church, and there was a guest from the Lutheran Church in Canada, who apparently is the demographics expert for that organization, and looking at the statistics, pointed out that the demise of their mainline churches should come around 2045. So much for cause and effect. Of course, I was told here in 2004 that there was no way that St. James could last more than 3 more years, so here we are. God sometimes has other plans. Cause and effect rules the way that we look at things objectively and scientifically and statistically, which helps a lot in solving certain kinds of problems. But if you look at the 3 lessons that we have for today, you can see that God works just as much by calling from the future as building from the past. All of these lessons speak of vocation. I mean, Isaiah's call to be a light to the nations, the call of the disciples, Andrew, Peter, the call to the church in the epistle as it moves toward the kingdom. Each individual life, I believe, is a special vocation. It's a calling to incarnate and shape and express spirit in a uniquely individual way that only you in your life can accomplish. But I think along with its display of tradition and beauty, the consecration of Bishop Lucinda was also a sacramental expression of this future orientation of vocation, because she is part of where we're going as well as an expression of where we've come from. And ordinations do that, the ordination of deacons and priests as well. They say that the sacrament of confirmation can be considered an ordination for lay ministry. But what I realized sitting in that church during that service, and as I pointed out last week, it was a 2.5-hour service, so there was a lot of thinking time, along with authorization for certain church functions and whatever. The ordination of deacons, priests, and bishops also present models that are applicable for all Christians. They present factors to incorporate one way or another in each individual calling. For example, the ministry of a deacon is first of all service. That's what deacons are about: service to the church, service to the world. They're charged with bringing the needs of the world to the attention of the church and the gifts of the church out into the world. But that's also something every Christian is called to do as well. You're called to be that bridge, wherever that world is for you. Priests are ordained, I've come to think after practicing it for a while, are called to a ministry of transformation. I think that's a key element in what priests do as priests. We do other things. We're all priests. To be a priest, you have to be a deacon, so you have service as a part of that, and you have other things. But the priest part is transformation, and that's shown through blessing, forgiving, and consecrating. In consecration, as expressed most clearly in the Holy Eucharist, the priest identifies the transformation that's going on of the bread and wine into the body and blood of Christ. It's not in a materialistic way, but in a deeper, truer spiritual transformation. Remembering Jesus to be present among us. Forgiveness, after confession or in private counsel, is an identification of the transformation that what seems to be broken can be transformed into wholeness. I don't see forgiveness as like an eraser of things we want to forget or get rid of, but as a vehicle to see how it all fits, and that God works through our defects as well as our talents. Blessing involves a transforming identification of how things of the world still show forth the holy essence of their creation. All things come from God, and if you look deeply enough, you sense that presence in everything. Now, priestly transformation isn't magic. They joke a lot in seminary about magic hands, but that's not it. There's not some power that the priest has to bring about those transformations. It's more a sensing through the visible into a sacred reality that's there all along but unseen. And that's a transforming experience. And all Christians are called to use this transforming sight and insight into the particularities of their individual lives, however they work in those contexts. However young or old someone is, however active or inactive those lives may be, however long a past you've had, God is calling you to the future. To a future that involves consecration, forgiveness, and blessing in some way, although uniquely expressed. A bishop, like Lucinda now, our new bishop, is called to a ministry of oversight. The word bishop comes from the Greek word episkopos, which is also where we get episcopal, which literally means oversight. Epi means over, scopos means sight, like telescope or microscope. It's like in Latin it's supervisor. Super means over, visor means sight, like vision or visor. A bishop is called to take it all in, the wide diversity of the universal church, the Anglican tradition, all the cultures of the world today and back through history. And the bishop is called also to guard the tradition so that the handoffs from one time to another, from one place to another, from one culture to another, are mindful of the faith. And all Christians are called to that role as well. You can't just dump it on Lucinda. We need to see the big picture, even though we act in very individual ways. We need to walk that fine line between inclusivity and innovation and integrity. So, what we call these holy orders aren't just job descriptions of people who get separated out for those jobs or parts of an institutional organization. They're also symbolic models for all to guide and structure a Christian life with service, transformation, and oversight as we move to the future that God is offering to us. And there's another sacrament besides those ordinations that also has vocational significance that I want to mention here, which is marriage. And maybe if confirmation is the ordination of the laity, maybe marriage is the ordination of the naively hopeful. I don't. But marriage is a significant model for everyone, not just married people. I mean, sometimes the gospel reading for this second Sunday after Epiphany is the story of the wedding at Cana, where Jesus performs his first miracle. And that story basically is it's about the timing of Jesus' call. It's also about transformation, where he transforms the water into wine. But the context, the setting of it at a wedding is also an important symbol. It speaks to the symbolic nature of marriage for every calling, in its grounding in relationship, in its epiphany of love at the heart of Christian life, as well as Christian ministry. Beyond its importance and in one way or another, almost universal establishment as a part of a stable society, marriage speaks to the deepest needs of human beings to not be alone. I think that's actually a statement of reality, that we cannot be alone. We can't really be when we're in isolation. We really only exist in relationship to one another, a relationship to the world. The marriage rite identifies the mystical union of that relationship that goes beyond its other purposes and calls us more deeply into a world that opens up when we can get beyond our self-centeredness and open up into the fuller life of Christian love that's available to everybody, married or not married, just as you have transformative insight even though you're not ordained as a priest. So the church in these several orders and vocations offers models and guidelines on which an individual calling can be further designed. It's like a pattern or a foundation on which you build the canvas or the background on the canvas that you begin to make your design: service, transformation, oversight, and especially love. So we are a part of a flow from the past that carries us along, but we're also created by a call from the future, by the inevitability and ever-presence of the kingdom, the now but not yet, at the heart of Christian life. So God is calling, and we need to listen. Thanks be to God.